Picks his way to the right and is tripped up, reaching for the end zone. Touchdown. What a start.
To Reed, and there he goes. Nobody's going to catch him. Touchdown.
It's caught. Jeremiah Smith. Touchdown, Ohio State. The legend grows.
This is Chasing the Natty, a college fantasy football podcast. All right, welcome in everyone. This is Jared Palmgren, host of the Chasing the Natty podcast. Hope you guys are having a wonderful time on this, Wednesday afternoon, I guess. It's like right at noon here. We are the College Fantasy Football Podcast on the Campus Again Podcast Network. You can find us on all of your podcast feeds and on YouTube every Monday morning and Tuesday night. Typically, we are at the end of the season. I don't even know why I'm saying this at this point. But if you do want to support the great work we do here, make sure you head over to campusofcanton.com. Subscribe there with any of our phenomenal tiers. We got content ranging on all sorts of college football games, whether it is CFF, Devy, C2C, college DFS, underdog best balls. If you play it, then we've got content, whether it's tools, rankings, pretty much everything you need to succeed. In fact, right now, if you want to support the show directly, make sure when you sign up for one of our yearly membership tiers over there at campusofcanton.com, you use that promo code NATTY, N-A-T-T-Y, to get 10% off your yearly membership. Again, that is promo code NATTY, N-A-T-T-Y. If you can't do that, totally fine. Just make sure you just show us some love by leaving a like, a comment on the stream here. Make sure you subscribe if you're not already. And, if you're on the podcast side of things listening later, make sure you leave a 5-star review. Make sure you are following the show. Not only does that show us support, but also the entire game of college fantasy football in general. A ton of support. If you have any questions or just want to get in touch for whatever reason, you can find me in the show on Twitter. I'm at CFF_Jared. The show is at Chasing the Natty, and I appreciate you guys so dang much for bearing with me. Obviously, those of you who are watching this live, we are very much not at our regularly scheduled time here for this stream, and that is fully on me. I'll tell you exactly what happened here in a second. But yeah, it was just complete brain fart by me. Just lost track of what day of the week it was, and it just made some plans, and by the time I realized the plans had been made, I was already well into those plans, and I was like, oh, shoot. It was like 8:45 when I realized that I was supposed to be doing a live stream. That's on me. My apologies to each and every one of you. Again, I'm glad we're still able to do this. I'm glad we're still able to be here to answer y'all's questions for championship week. Again, congratulations to each and every one of you that are leaving questions. If you are leaving a question, that means that you are in your championship, and I am proud of you guys, and I'm glad that I can help you guys out with all of this. Justin Leo, aka Volume Pigs, will be joining us at some point. He's running a little bit late right now, and again, totally understandable on his part. We're doing a weird schedule and everything, so he will hop on whenever he is available here. But for right now, you guys got me, so it'll just be like our normal live streams through the first 12 weeks of the season as we were doing them. So you'll just have to listen to my voice, and eventually we will get his as well. But yeah, again, sorry about last night. Again, I have a good excuse for all the guys out there listening and everything. I think you'll find this quite understandable that I got the opportunity to watch The Godfather for the first time last night, and I was so excited that for some reason everything else in my mind just completely vanished, and that was like the solely focused thing that I was able to do with my buddy. And again, like by the time I realized what was going on, like what I was supposed to be doing, I was like, shoot. So again, hope you guys can forgive me. We'll get to some of these questions. Let's go ahead and get started here. We'll start with, as always, I think typically at this point, I think he's almost always the first question on here, but Tom Cross, our friend from across the pond, he says, hey Jared, hey Tom, here we go. So I've narrowed down my last 2 flex spots down to 4. Full PPR, Sia Bengira against Buffalo, Danny Scudero up against Fresno State, Jackson Harris versus Wyoming, Alex Perry versus Eula Monroe. First shot at championship, so try to nail it. Hey, Tom, I'm happy for you. Oh, also, let me go ahead and throw the screen up here. There we go. My apologies. All right, let's go ahead and plug these guys in here. So we need 2 of these 4. Sia Bangura. Sia Bangura has been on just an absolute hot streak recently. He going up against Buffalo is a little bit harder of a team than what he's faced in recent weeks here, but it's one of those just classic Maction matchups here towards the end where a guy gets hot and he just goes through the rest of the season. If I remember correctly, he is quite high in seasonal rankings at this point. Let's see. Let's pull those up real quick. Yep, there he is. RB8 on the season. And again, if I go over here to his ranking, since the second half of the season, he's been a top 5 running back in all of CFF. Again, Bangura's just been on absolute hot streak. He's got some good receiving work as well. So honestly, like off the top of my head, I'm probably going with Bangura, and according to our projections, they agree with that. When you have these other options here, Tom, I can't believe I'm saying this given how great he's been this season, but just with how San Jose State's offense has been recently, I would sit Scudero here because I think Harris and Perry are both guys that are on hot streaks. There we go. Let's get Justin in here. All right, there we go. And then let's throw up this screen. There we go. Get Justin fixed up there. Wrong page. There we go. Justin, welcome, man.
Hey, sorry, I guess I'm joining midstream here.
You're midstream. We're jumping right into it, Justin. That's my bad. I how long were you waiting there? I just saw the admit button at the top of the call.
Not long. It was like 30 seconds or whatever. So
no, you're good. You're good. So the question we got Justin here. Let me scroll down here because I just realized Tom and nobody else can see the projections here. We're deciding between 4. We need 2 of these guys: Sia Bangura, Jackson Harris, Scudero, and Perry.
okay.
My thought here is Bangura is a must start, even in PPR format compared to the wide receivers, because he's just been on such a hot streak recently. Buffalo's not the greatest matchup in the world, but it's hard to sit Bangura at this point. I would sit for sure Scudero, because again, between him and the other wide receivers, like he's on a cold streak. Perry and Harris on a hot streaks. Harris and Perry have pretty good matchups. Fresno, pretty rough matchup for a Mountain West team at this point. So I personally would lean Harris and Bangura, which agrees with our projections here. What are your thoughts, Justin?
Yeah, well, I mean, I get that Scudero isn't scoring like 40 points. So technically, I mean, he's, I guess, kind of on a cold streak. He had a pretty good game last week. I know this because Nate knocked me out in the semifinals in the Golden Pig, and he has Danny Scudero, and he beat me by like 6 points, and Scudero was one of the players that gave him the win at the end of the night. So I think he scored something like 19 PPR points, something like that, if my memory holds, which admittedly
I can see that. Yeah, I got him at 13.9 half point PPR.
I guess the greater concern is like, well, what's the deal with the quarterback situation there? They've got this new kid in there. I mean, it ended up being fine, I guess, last game. Scudero still had a solid game. I'm not as worried, I guess, as you are, about Scudero. I think he's one I would still consider. Um, Jackson Harris, though, I think was another receiver that you mentioned, the Hawaii receiver, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, yeah, he's also a great option. I mean, he's kind of clearly ascended into the alpha that they've been waiting on for a long time there at Hawaii.
Mm-hmm.
Sort of they've got other names, but Harris definitely seems to be the guy LA Head likes. I'm with you on Bangura though. Like Bangura for sure, I'd lock him in. At wide receiver, it's a little bit more, I don't know, it's a little more tight for me. I think in championship weekend, the idea of not starting Scudero feels a bit wrong, but if you're gonna do it, you would do it for a guy like Jackson Harris or even Alex Perry. I think I would still go Scudero. I just that system, even with that new quarterback, they're still targeting him quite a bit,
Mm-hmm.
which is just the targets. You can never mess. Like the targets are the best thing that you're looking for, and if it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. But like if those opportunities, it's hard to find other players that are getting 10 plus targets a game. So Scudero is probably my other pick, but I understand Jared's thought process as well.
See, like my thing is here, I'm looking at, like, I have it up on the screen here where, you know, like since week 9, Scudero's been wide receiver 40. Harris has been top 10, and Perry as well has been top 10 as well. Right.
Yeah, I
So
guess.
it's like it's one thing to me, like, yes, Scudero's still been fine. Well, actually no, he hasn't been fine. Like last week he was fine, right? But
Mhm.
again, if you're just giving me two other guys that have been on such hot streaks that they've been top 10 wide receivers really this back half of the season, or these last couple of weeks of the season, I find it harder to sit those guys at this point than try to hope that San Jose State's going to turn it back on against one of the best Mountain West defenses that there is in Fresno State. So,
Yeah, that's a fair thought process. I guess Scudero's kind of been more like he's been really hot some weeks. I don't know he's been that consistent this year. Like he's had some monster like 40, 50 point games, but he's not necessarily like 20 points every week kind of
mhm.
guy. So you might have sort of brought me back around on this one. Again, championship weekend, you don't need to be taking any unnecessary risks. So if you are worried, like I said, there's a new quarterback there at San Jose State. So that maybe by itself is grounds for looking elsewhere. So yeah, if Jackson Harris, Alex Perry, those are pretty good options too. Maybe choose one of those.
Yeah. All right, let's move on to our next question here. It comes to us from 863 Kane. Pick one for a flex spot, half point PPR. We got Damon Claiborne at Duke, Carlos Hernandez at, Carlos Hernandez at Duke, or Caleb Komolafe at Illinois. So again, like he said, half point PPR. Let me go ahead and plug those guys into our projections here. So again, the two Wake Forest guys here, and then Komolafe. Where are you at with this one, Justin?
Well, shoot. I mean, it's hard to ignore. You talk about a hot streak at wide receiver, right? The last couple of weeks, Carlos Hernandez, has been on fire. Really,
Beautiful.
yeah, really. Yeah, well, yeah, exactly. And take your victory lap. I know he was a guy you liked in the offseason. I guess a lot of people did. And finally, sort of with Robbie Ashford, it seems like he's been unlocked. Better late than never, right?
Hmm.
Um, yeah, and then you have these two running backs, Caleb Komala. That Northwestern running game is really a pleasant surprise. And they're playing, the text is so small, I can't see. Who are they playing?
Illinois.
Oh, yeah, it's not ideal, but it's not a terrible matchup either. I mean, I think they're going to be able to run the ball on Illinois. I mean, there's been all kinds of games this year where I thought Northwestern wasn't going to be able to run the ball, only for them to be able to do it anyways. And so, um, I've stopped worrying like about them as a team if they can be effective or not. I think they'll be okay. Damon Claiborne against Duke, this is I think Claiborne's he's always kind of a safe play. Like I know he's sort of had some letdown weeks, but like we know his role. We know that they want to get him the ball. Um, if the offense sort of sputters, he might have a difficult time. I know Duke's defense is kind of a little bit like they're pretty solid this year, but I don't know if like they're so scary that you can't start Claiborne. I think for sure, Hernandez just I think you got to sort of ride the wave there of his last 2 weeks. He's a guy who is red hot right now. I think why not sort of plug him back in there and just and hope for the best and hope that it continues. And he needs a second player, or is it just one?
Just the one.
Oh, okay. Well, then I guess that's my answer then.
You're riding a hot streak with Hernandez.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I love Claiborne. I think he's kind of running out of gas, right? He's still getting the volume and everything. Either he's running out of gas or this O line just isn't helping him at all because his efficiency's been pretty rough the last couple of weeks. And like Duke's, yeah, like you said, their rushing defense isn't really anything to be feared, but they're good enough to where I don't really see Claiborne having like a monstrous game here. Maybe if
Mhm.
he breaks off a long reception, but I'm going to count on Hernandez to do that more because Duke's secondary is terrible. They're bottom 5 in the country, right?
Oh, okay.
And so that does help out Hernandez quite a bit. But once again, if we're talking about hot streaks, Como LaFay has been on fire outside of pretty much every game except the Michigan game recently,
Mhm.
right? And I talked about it earlier. Yeah, look at this last 3 games here. I don't know if you guys can see this. Oh, there we go. So like his last 3 games here, or last 4 games really. So we got 20, 24.5, 24.3, 9.1, 25.6. That 9.1 is against Michigan. That's where just Northwestern just got out talented, right? But then those other matchups were the likes against Minnesota, USC, rushing defenses that are roughly similar to what Illinois put up this year, right? So if that tells me if Komalafe can run on them, he's going to be able to run on Illinois here. And so my thought is, in a half-point PPR format, I'm going to take your route here, Justin, that you normally do. I'm going to lean towards the running back here, especially one like Komalafe who can catch some balls out of the backfield, so you get a few of those PPR points as well. But I'm going to keep, he's the hot streak that I think I'm going to ride, because wide receivers, they can be real hot and go cold real quick. Running backs, typically, you don't see that drop off as quick. So
Yeah, that logic is sound. Like, he's definitely the safer floor player too. Like, like as you mentioned, if he has a bad game, it'll be like 9 points, right? Like against Michigan. Whereas like a wide receiver, Carlos Hernandez, if he has a bad game, it could be really bad. But he could also have a much higher scoring game than Komalafe too, right? Like it's easier to see Hernandez getting 35 points. So it's a little bit on the person who asked, like, if you sort of want a better floor versus like you want to really swing. I think that's kind of a question you might want to ask yourself.
I would agree. All right. Keep it moving here. We'll go with William's question next. He needs us to choose between one of these quarterbacks here, Brad Jackson against South Alabama or Jake Retzlaff going up against Charlotte. So where are you at with that one, Justin?
Yeah, well, Brad Jackson's been like really good all year, really solid. I don't know that there's much reason to overthink it. I know Retzlaff's been pretty solid too, but I'm pretty sure Brad Jackson's just been the better performer pretty much all season. I could be wrong. I know you're going to
They're both
verify
top
it.
10 quarterbacks on the year. So they're
Okay.
like you're talking about two studs here.
Yeah, so it's splitting hairs, although Brad Jackson is still ahead, I guess, of Jake Retzlaff. Which in and of itself, I think like I'd probably just utilize that and just say, well, Brad Jackson's been slightly better all year. Both of their matchups are pretty similar. I mean,
Yeah.
there's not a lot that stands out. So to me, it's just like, okay, well, you have to choose one. One's been slightly better. I think that's kind of the way I'll just kind of keep it simple that way.
No, I mean, I don't blame that logic whatsoever, because like my only thing here is that Charlotte is just an all-around bad team, and I think Retzlaff's going to be able to take advantage of them through the air and on the ground, versus South Alabama's defense this year has been horrific against the run, pretty solid versus the pass. And so my thought is maybe like with Brad Jackson, maybe you're relying on him to get some rushing, versus like Retzlaff, he's going to run. Like that's one of his main deals, right?
Mhm.
So I would personally maybe lean towards the matchup there, but again, like we said, these are two absolute studs, and if one of these guys bottoms out this week, it would just be with bad luck, in my opinion. I think it's just bad luck at that point, because on paper, both of these matchups are really good. These guys have both been studs all season. They've both been very consistent. It's not like a up and down situation like an Alonzo Barnett or something like that. I would personally lean towards Retzlaff just because of the matchup. You would lean towards Brad Jackson just because he has outperformed Retzlaff by an average of 3. Well, actually, let me look at their fantasy points per game. Yeah, so Jackson's been averaging 28.2. Retzlaff has been averaging about 25.6. So you would just say, hey, like he's getting 3 more points per game. They both got good matchups. Just go with the guy with 3 more points per game. I don't blame that either.
The margins are thin, championship weekend, right? The 3 points can be the difference. Not that that's a guarantee he's going to outscore Retzlaff by 3, but just using that logic, hopefully he still has a pretty good game. So
yeah, and our projections are very similar as well. Like on the website, like Brad Jackson 28.43, Retzlaff 27.5. They're both top 10 quarterbacks for us. Like legitimately, I don't think you have a bad option there, William.
Yeah.
Let's move on to Tyler's question. He says 6-point passing touchdown league, Lunch Winfield versus Ewan Monroe or Del Rio Wilson versus Georgia Southern. Once again, 2 hot guys towards the end of the year here. 2 good matchups here. Justin, where are your thoughts?
Yeah, well, this one hits close to home because I have both of these quarterbacks in the Golden Pig, which is my home league. So I know quite a bit about both. I know Del Rio Wilson actually didn't play that much in the fourth quarter last week. It was Zion Turner who came in. I was trying to get information on that. But the coach mentioned that Del Rio was going to play this week and actually just said the words, "We need a big game from him." So that's very encouraging to me. I was initially concerned and I was thinking about dropping him in my league, but it sounds like he's going to be the starter and that they're going to be relying on him a lot. So in this matchup against Georgia Southern as the reader mentioned is a really good one. Dwayne Lunch Winfield, sorry, as a great matchup against UL Monroe as well. Similar profile, right? Big quarterback, runs a lot, so they're kind of similar QBs. Um, it's another kind of close one. Originally I would have leaned toward Winfield just because there was some uncertainty there with Del Rio Wilson. I think I'm gonna go back in on Del Rio. He's been kind of hit or miss. I know you mentioned like he's hot towards the end of the year. He's been actually kind of hit or miss like the
Yeah.
last couple of weeks. He was actually really hot in like October, and then he's been kind of. But this Georgia Southern matchup, man, it's so like that team's defense has been money for CFF this year, specifically for like running games versus
Hmm.
them. Which that could be a problem in an in a
Yeah.
sort of twisted way where like okay maybe Michael Allen and the running backs get a bunch of work. I like both. I don't think you're gonna go wrong with either, right? Like it could bottom out. You never know. Every week it's randomness happens. But I think Carlos Del Rio Wilson would be my pick. I love that Georgia Southern matchup. They're both really good matchups. But you have to pick one. I think Del Rio, his coach mentioned they need a really big game from him this week, and he specifically mentioned that. I know I'm sort of leveraging that a lot here, but I just think they're going to be putting a lot on him, and that they're going to ask him to basically win the game for them. So hopefully that comes to fruition from a CFF standpoint.
Yeah, again, I'm actually going to lean towards Winfield here, mostly because again, he's got a good matchup, and since he's become the starter, he has not had a game below 20 points. And this is 6-point passing touchdowns as well, so add more points on top of that, right? And so I think I'm going to lean towards that. He's been top 10s back half of the season. Meanwhile, Del Rio Wilson, like you said, because of those kind of mid games there in the kind of mid to late portion of the season, those two 17-pointers right there.
Yeah,
I think
with
there's a
Del
bigger
Rio.
chance. I think there's a bigger chance of him bottoming out than there is Winfield in a championship week. I cannot afford a quarterback to bottom out on me, and I think I would go Winfield because of that.
Fair enough. I'll just add that with Del Rio, it is kind of predictable when he like when they play better teams, he has tougher games. When he plays sort of weaker teams and they win, he typically performs better. And I think this Georgia Southern defense is one where like he should be able to
Horrific.
have. Yeah, so this should be a good one for him, but the logic that you mentioned makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah. All right, we'll go with Raider Gators 15's question here. It says, "Hey Jared and Justin, from these running backs, which two would you start, or who? Or I guess another way to ask is, who would you sit among these three?" So we got Jordan Marshall, who is a beast, but he's
Mhm.
got himself a real ugly matchup here against Ohio State this weekend. We got Komolafe back again. And then we have Jakiri. So we got four. We got Jakari Lewis out of App State, or we got Jakyle Middlebrook, who is, I forget who's he going up against, New Mexico State.
Middlebrook is a smash. You got to start him. I'm just going to say that right away. So that's one spot, at least in my opinion. Marshall, yeah, you have a bad matchup. Plus, you have like the other kid who has been pretty good, and I don't know how they're going to handle that. Like, are they going to give both carries? I can't even remember. It's a weird name that the other player has, who's been their like primary tailback while Marshall was away.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know off the top of your head,
Like
Jared, who
Hutzel
I'm
or
talking
something
about?
like that. I can't remember.
Yeah, something.
I was trying to look it up. I'm like I know who you're talking about. I just can't
Yeah.
remember how to pronounce his name off the top of my head.
Yeah, well, my point with mentioning him is like, okay, I don't know what they're gonna do there now that like, okay, yeah, Marshall's back, but are they gonna, continue to give him a bunch of carries too? Like the game script in this one could be completely off. Like they might get like absolutely pummeled like in the first quarter, second quarter. I know this is a weird rivalry where you kind of have to throw out everything that we've seen up to this point, but Ohio State, from what we know this year, is just a better team, and
Mm-hmm.
it could be a really tough matchup. So Middlebrook is one pick. I'm not really going to consider Marshall. I think Komalafe, as we discussed earlier, I think is another really good option this week. Jakari Lewis, who's coming off that monster performance. We have a sample size of one, with him, which, it's risky, right? I mean, it's who knows what's going to happen this week. But you could swing really high with him. I think for me, if we're wanting to just sort of keep it keep it simple here. Middlebrook has been great this year. He's a smash play, and Komalafe, same kind of deal, right? He's been good this year. There's not a lot of question marks about him. I think we, as discussed, this matchup should be okay. I think the matchup's going to be fine. So those are the two, just because we know they're the starters. There's not a lot of question marks with them, and they've both been good. So I don't really want to overthink it too much.
Yeah, and especially like he didn't put it in here, but if this is a PPR league, like Middlebrook's a smash for sure because he gets a lot of good receiving work there. I
Mhm.
agree with you. If you're playing it safe, Middlebrook and Komalafe are the easy starts there. If you're an underdog Raider Gators, like if you're looking at it and Fantrax is saying you're like a what percentage number would you like you know how like in Fantrax it like
Yeah,
tells you like what percentage you're likely to win? At what point, Justin, would you consider taking the upside swing at Jakari Lewis? Right, where
well,
like if you're at 35%, would you take an upside swing at Jakari Lewis over the likes of Komalafe?
Well, look, I love fan tracks, but I have to be honest, I don't put a lot of stuff. I've actually turned that option off in all of my leagues because I just don't like I don't care that much about what it says about the winning percentage. But hypothetically, let's just say he's looking at the matchup and assessing and saying, okay, I feel like an underdog this week, and maybe I need something, I need something big. Sure, if you feel like you need a big swing and you have deficiencies elsewhere and you feel like an underdog, certainly, take a shot with Lewis and see what happens. But that being said, right, like we think we know more than we actually do, I think sometimes in CFF. And the reason I say that is there is high upside as well with Komalafe and Middlebrook too, right? These guys are both really involved running backs, and they could also hit a high score this week. So
For
don't
sure.
don't think that like, well, it has to be Lewis if I want a huge score. These guys can get there too, and they don't really have the same question marks that you have with Lewis, right? So I
I
would
think it's
mention
fair.
that. Yeah.
No, that is 100% fair. Let's move on. Scrolling down just a little bit because we got a lot of repeat questioners. Todd Skids. He says, "Thanks for everything. Undefeated and in the championship game, so leaving no stone unturned. I have 4 questions for you, Todd. We are gonna answer one. Um, so we'll go with Todd's quarterback question here. He needs Alonzo Barnett going up against Coastal, Michael Alejado versus Wyoming, or Bryson Barnes versus Boise. Is this like a Mountain West only
Yeah,
team you
really.
got built over here, Todd? Well, actually, no, never mind. Barnett's not Mountain West. What am I even talking about? But I'm
G5.
plugging these guys in. Justin, where's your head at with these three?
Yeah, well, all three have obviously been good. I mean, anybody who's asking questions at this point in the year, the players you have are going to all be pretty good, right? So, um, I think I don't know. I mean, Wyoming's defense is typically stingy, but I don't know for a fact, like, are they a good defense this year? That this is something that I'm kind of just sort of assuming that Hawaii maybe will have a tougher time playing against Wyoming's defense, but I don't know that for sure. We can get that sort of confirmed. I'm sure Jared will probably know when he speaks.
I'm sorry, say
Bryce,
it one more time. I got distracted for a second.
no problem. How is Wyoming's defense this year? Normally they're very good, but I don't know
Loki,
if
I
they're
saw this question. My immediate thought was like, I'm not exactly sure how good my Wyoming's defense is. So let me look that
yeah.
up real quick.
Typically, like on a typical year, that's like a defense where like well, that's just a team where you think like, oh, it's going to be low scoring, it's going to be like slow moving. It's just not a good team for like even if like defensively they're not that bad. It's just a team where there's not a lot of great CFF outcomes that happen traditionally. Um, so I don't know. Maybe the Wyoming game I might try to steer away from. I like Alontae Barnett versus Coastal. Coastal I know has a pretty poor defense. And Barnett's just sort of he's one of those quarterbacks he can win the slate for you. We've seen that this year. So he's one for sure that's in play for me. Bryson Barnes, another one who's been fantastic this year. I know Boise though is typically good on defense as well.
They're pretty
So
solid this year.
yeah, so that one maybe I don't know. That one could turn into like a really, really high scoring game though, because I could see a situation where Utah State can't stop Boise and like Bryson Barnes is good enough to score on Boise State as well, so that kind of becomes a back and forth shootout.
Yeah.
Um, does he need two or one?
He needs one.
I would go for Alonze Barnett. Coastal Carolina defense not so good. Barnett been very good. Very simple sort of logic.
James
That's
Madison's
my
going to need
point.
to score style points. They want that playoff spot, right? They need to impress the
Yeah,
committee in
great point.
some way.
Great
There's a
point.
lot going for Barnett here versus like Barnes and Alejado. Boise State's and Wyoming's defenses can be had in certain ways. Wyoming, I just looked up, they are 109th versus the run, but they are top 11 in pass
Uh,
defense. So I'm not exactly sure how that's going to translate much for Alejado. It could very well, because like Hawaii has been a team this year that when they overwhelm their opponent, they overwhelm their opponent with their offense. But then they can get shut down randomly. Like who saw them scoring 10 points versus one of the worst defenses in UNLV, right? Like that blew
yeah,
my mind. I'm hoping that's not a trend here. Maybe that's a reason to just move off Alejado here towards the end, because maybe that offense, just like San Jose State's offense, just something's not clicking there anymore
yeah,
in
yeah.
the back half of the season. So maybe avoid that. And then, Barnett's been up and down, but like you kind of said, it's been relatively predictable, right? When they got some tougher matchups, he doesn't do as well. If he has a solid matchup here like Coastal Carolina, he could go for bonkers numbers. So
Hmm.
I would go Barnett and try to just like Barnett could be just the absolute knockout punch that you could get in your
Yeah,
championship game.
single-handedly he can win a matchup. So
All right, let's move on here. Let's go to JC Connolly's question here. JC Connolly, we're going to get to your running back question here. And I think looking at these names, I think this will be a relatively quick one here because we already talked about one of these guys in us not really loving the matchup. And then you got studs galore outside of it. Okay, so we got Cam Cook, we got Emmett Johnson, we have Kentrell Bullock, and we have Jordan Marshall. So, I need Jordan. So, congratulations, JC Connolly. According to our projections, you have 3 of the top 10 running backs for us this week. But we kind of talked about it earlier, Justin. We're not too keen on that Jordan Marshall start this week, mostly because, again, he's been banged up. Ohio State's a tough defense. We don't know if Kuzdal, I think is how you pronounce his last name. Again, Michigan fans, I'm sorry. If Kuzdal's mother is listening, I'm sorry. That's just not a name I'm going to get on the first try. But that's a variable being added in. And then we need to start 3 here. We only need to sit 1. And then you got 3 studs in Cook, Johnson, and Bullock, all up against pretty good matchups here. Maybe you don't love that Johnson matchup against Iowa here, but like otherwise,
the must start. You start him every week. He's matchup proof. Like even when he has a bad game, right? It's 14 or 15 PPR points.
yeah.
So Emmett Johnson, you start. You don't even think about it. This one hits close to home. Like Cam Cook, Keith Bullock were 2 running backs that I got sniped on during the Golden Pig draft. Nate got Kentrell Bullock. Sun Kings got Cam Cook. Really wanted both those players. Congrats to this guy. This is a great running back room. And echoing Jared's thoughts, I don't think we need to overthink it too much. I don't really know why the projections like Marshall so much this week. To me, all of the variables point to this not being a great matchup. He could end up having a great game. Weird things happen. But to me, you have 3 studs. I know one has sort of a tougher matchup in Johnson, but like I said, I don't think he's had a single bad game this year. I mean, you just have to start him. And the other 2, it's like, okay, good matchups, and they've been great all year. I don't see what there's really no reason not to start them. So easy, not easy, but those 3 for sure.
Yeah, I agree. I think this is just one of those where you don't need to overthink it. You got one guy here with a really tough matchup. The other 3 are all studs with solid matchups. So just go with them. John K, next question here. John K, you left a lot of questions here, so we're gonna do your running back question, I think, here. He says, thanks for the call as well last week with Arch, starting Arch. Yes, that was one of Arch's better weeks last week, so we got that one right. Yeah, so 3 running backs here. Pick one. We got Jonah Coleman, who is going up against UCLA this weekend. Or no, never mind. That's right. That's wrong. He went up against UCLA last week. It's Oregon this week. Darius Taylor, who I forget who. Oh, they're playing Wisconsin, right? And then we have Turbo Richard, who is going up against Syracuse. So projections like Richard the most of these bunch, but not by much here. 12.89. You got Darius Taylor going up against Wisconsin, who's been pretty solid on defense. And then Jonah Coleman, A lot of injury concerns with him. Been a stud most of the season, and then you get one of the toughest matchups he's faced all year here in championship week. Justin, what are your thoughts here?
Yeah, well, the projections are a little more pessimistic on these players than I would have expected, I guess. Yeah, so Jonah Coleman, like his coach said, point blank, like he's going to play a lot more this week. So, the first sort of concern that I would have had with him is where's his health? What's his role going to be this weekend? Sounds like he's going to be the starter again. They're going to play him. So that's the first box that needs to be checked. I don't know really this Oregon defense. Like I know statistically, this is the thing about college football. You can only work with the sample sizes that you have. But like in terms of like, well, who's Oregon played? What are these numbers based on? I don't know that they're as good defensively as their numbers suggest they are. Again, it is a bit of a risk though, still, if you want to start a running back, especially coming off an injury. But Jonah Coleman is a stud when he's full go, and I think this is a game where he could probably still have a good game. Yeah, you have a similar kind of profile with Darius Taylor. He's playing, but he is hurt, and I have him in the Golden Pig League that I keep referencing. So I was watching his game last week. He had like a long run that he could have scored a touchdown on, but he literally just never got out of like second gear. Like he was just jogging the entire time because I think he's playing with something wrong with his leg. Like something's up with him, and he's not 100%. And so you have to sort of monitor that. Like he's gonna play, but like he's playing at like 75% right now. On volume alone, he should still have a decent day against Wisconsin. And this is a rivalry game, and I know PJ Fleck wants, cares a lot about winning this game. So I'm sure they're going to use him, but you got to know he can leave the game at any moment. And then Turbo Richard, he's another one, right? He got injured a few weeks ago, and it's kind of hard to tell what are we going to get with him? Is he, are we going to get less than 10 touches? Is he going to be a 20 touch guy this weekend? Syracuse defense is terrible. So that's, we have that going for us here. I think I would probably, gosh, I I want to start Darius Taylor as one of the players, even though I know he's kind of hurt. It's just like, even though he was hurt last weekend, he still had a pretty good game. And even if they can't run the ball, they just hit him with a bunch of targets. So if this is a PPR league, like he should be able to get 10, 15 points sort of as a floor, I hope. Um, in terms of upside play, I think Richard's probably like, okay, if he's healthy and they play him against that defense, like he could easily have a good day. Jonah Coleman, he's another risk, but I think like he could have sort of a solid day. I don't think he's going to have an amazing day against Oregon, but he's one where you have to deal with, well, how healthy is he? How much are they going to play him? So all three of these guys, there's a lot of question marks. And how many do we have to start? One or two?
Just one.
Okay, so I guess Darius Taylor is a reluctant sort of pick for me. As I've mentioned, there's problems with all three, and I don't really want to. Ideally don't really want to be starting a guy who I know is banged up, but he played last week banged up and he had what 20 points in PPR.
Yeah.
So if you can do that, then you take that, right? And that'll usually be good enough at running back, at one of the running back spots to give your team a chance to win. Turbo Richard, I just don't know. He's kind of an enigma. He kind of had like a big game on 11 carries in his last appearance against
Against
Georgia
Georgia
Tech.
Tech, yeah.
So maybe I don't know. That changes things a little bit for me. It would be between him and Darius Taylor. I think those are the two I'd really be thinking about. Uh, you know what? No, I'm going to change my answer. I'm going Turbo. Just based on the fact that it looks like he was heavily involved last game, even though he didn't have a lot of carries. They used him in the air, five
Yeah,
targets.
like how it's one of those things, right, where you see the low number of carries, but you kind of wonder, like, if he didn't break off some of these long runs, like how many carries would that have been to get, like, he has that long run of
Yeah,
43 yards, right? That's one
yeah,
carry for 43 yards. If he didn't break off that long run, would that instead have been five carries
yeah,
for 43
or
yards
yeah,
or 12
yeah,
carries for 43 yards? Like
yeah.
it could have just been his low
No,
volumes because he was ripping off big chunks.
yeah, no, I'm glad you brought this pain up because I just wasn't really sure like what was going on with him recently, and it seems like in his most recent appearance, like he was full go. They used him and he had a great game. So I think I would go with him against Syracuse and hope for something similar that just happened against Georgia Tech, because Syracuse's defense is also not very good. So yeah, I changed my answer, Turbo Richard.
Yeah, I think I'm going to go with Richard here as well. Again, like you said, Last time we saw him, he was looking really good. The matchup's good here. And, he has been up and down. But again, if you look at the pattern, it's pretty clear. SMU, good run defense. Notre Dame, good run defense. UConn, good run defense. Didn't do very hot in those games. Clemson, actually pretty solid run defense, but he still did pretty good there. Pitt, good run defense. Didn't do so hot. Cal, not good. 33 points. Stanford, not good. 22 points. Michigan State, 27 points. Did pretty well there. When he's got good matchups, he shows up. And so I think you go with that, and you just try to avoid the injury nonsense going on with Darius Taylor and Jonah Coleman. I thought Coleman was going to be good to go last week because that's what Jed Fish was basically implying, was like, oh, he could have gone the week before, but, we wanted to save him one more week, didn't want to risk anything. And I was like, all right, well, he'll play against UCLA, and that's a smash spot. He got 4 carries for 6 yards. That's a little concerning that he didn't look very hot against a UCLA run defense that is pretty atrocious. So I would avoid that. I would go Turbo Richard as well. All right, Austin Woods question here. He says, hey, Jared and Justin, full point PPR. Choose 2 wide receivers, Jackson Harris versus Wyoming, Nick McMillan versus Ohio, or Jordan Hudson versus Cal. So 3 hot receivers to finish the year here. Justin, who do we end with?
Well, Jordan Hudson has to be started, I think, every week right now. He's been fantastic sort of since he came back from his elbow injury. He's, clearly the wide receiver 1 there for SMU. And they're playing meaningful football right now, so they have every reason to want to win the game and do everything they can. So there's no animosity there. Nothing really to worry about with him. I guess we kind of spoke about this Hawaii-Wyoming game. Earlier we spoke about Jackson Harris. I didn't quite realize the matchup as well when we were talking about that. And then with Alejada, we kind of delved into it a little bit more. So that could be a tough game for Hawaii. And if it is, then their wide receivers could suffer. And then Nick McMillan, he's been great this November, this back half of the year. And they're playing, is it Ohio? Yeah. So Ohio, I guess they're typically
solid MAC defense.
Yeah, so a solid MAC defense. I don't know if they're scary enough that okay, well, will Buffalo not be able to move the ball? I don't know about that. For me, I think I'd probably go Hudson and McMillan. Like I said, Hudson for sure. It's really a question of who's that second guy, and McMillan's probably the one I'd go with just because the matchup. Even though I know statistically Ohio is also pretty solid, I just feel well, I trust Buffalo to be able to move the ball, and Hawaii is just kind of an enigma. You just don't really know what you're going to get with them week to week.
It's hard to split hairs on these guys because again, all three of these guys have been studs the back half of the season. All 3 have matchups that are not terrible, but they're not good either. And specifically with Harris, right? It feels like no matter what, Hawaii's going to find a way to get him a touchdown. That's just how it's been this back half of the season here. Even in a game like UNLV where they just got absolutely clobbered.
Yeah, Harris
still found a way into the end zone there. Hudson's been great. McMillan's been great. I don't think there's really a bad start among these 3 guys. I would say that Hudson, SMU California feels like the game that could end up scoring. Actually, you know what? Let's pull up the over-unders on this game. I forgot that we have this. So let's check out SMU. Lost it. Yeah, SMU Cal 52.5. So, solid, but nothing great. Yeah, Wyoming, Hawaii, a little bit lower at 44.5 there. And then our last matchup was Ohio and Buffalo, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they're. Oh nope, that's the wrong Ohio game. They're also in the 40s. So yeah, I would say go Hudson. Higher scoring matchup there, probably better chance of touchdown there. That really saves it between Harris and McMillan. That is real tough between them. Again, projections are saying Harris, but that's by about half a point there.
Which one has been better this season? I'm sure
just in general, I'm fairly certain it's been Harris.
Because he's been better
Jackson
for
Harris
longer.
is wide receiver 31 on the year versus Nick McMillan. Yeah, wide receiver 59 on the year. And if we want to do just back half of the season, so week 7 on, Nick McMillan's been wide receiver 33, and I think Harris has been wide receiver 3 in the second half of the season.
Oh, Wow. Yeah.
Again, it tends to happen when you score a touchdown every single game.
Really, I know. Yeah.
So I would lean towards Harris over McMillan in that case and agree with the projections here. So let's move on to our next question here. It comes to us from Troy Olson. Let's see. We want to do or I'll have you pick, Justin. Wide receiver question or running back question?
Oh, running back question all day.
All right. We need one running back between Raleek Brown going up against Arizona this week, Antoine Raymond going up against Penn State, or Anthony Hankerson going up against Washington State.
Oh, it's an eclectic group that we have there. So Raleek Brown coming off 255 rushing yards. He's another one that I have rostered in my home league, so it's close to home. I
Almost
actually have Raymond.
single-handedly ruined my week last week.
He almost single-handedly brought me a win over CFF Nate, which would have been great. Unfortunate it didn't happen. Raymond, I guess has sort of the toughest matchup statistically, at least. But I think Penn State, you can run the football on them. I think Rutgers should be able to run the football on them. Raymond's just one of those guys where he gets so much volume too. Like even against Ohio State, I think he finished with like something like 10 or 12 points, which like if that's his bad game, I think you take that. I don't think they're going to have quite as much trouble against Penn State. Um, Hankerson has been great towards the end of the year. Terrible, terrible bust really for the season overall, but a player who has really sort of come on strong towards the end of the year. That being said, this Washington State defense, I did just watch Wayne Knight from James Madison sort of have a tougher day. He ended up scoring 18 points because he had a long touchdown run at the end of the game. But it was sort of a tougher day, tougher sledding for the most part for James Madison this past weekend. Um, and then Malik Brown, yeah, gosh, I mean, this guy just absolutely killed it last weekend. Uh, I think I would probably choose Raleek Brown and Anthony Hankerson. I don't know. Raleek Brown for sure. Just because, yeah, he's the starter coming off a great game. And I think with the new quarterback in there, of Jeff Sims, I just think maybe Raleek Brown's got a bigger role. Um, Hankerson against Washington State versus Raymond versus Rutgers. Very difficult for me to sort of choose between the two. You know what? Actually, I'm going to go with Raymond just because he's been more consistent all year.
Mm-hmm.
And even though I don't love the matchup, I'm just sort of comparing the two and thinking on the totality of the season. He's been better than Hankerson, and if we're splitting hairs, that's just one thing that kind of pushes him over the edge then for me. And then the other one would be Raleek Brown, just primarily because he's coming off that monster matchup, and it's a rivalry game, and I assume they're gonna rely on him a lot again.
Yeah, I mean, it to me is down between Raymond and Brown as well. I just looked it up. Arizona and Penn State pretty average against the run. Both teams averaging just about 150 yards given up rushing each game, and given what we know with Antoine Raymond, he'll get every single one of those yards for Rutgers. So again, if you tell me on average he's going to get 150 yards, I will take that all day long. Raleek
Oh
Brown,
yeah.
pretty much workhorse back as well. If he can put up 250 against Colorado, I think he can get 150 here against Arizona. I'm totally cool with that. Meanwhile, Anthony Hankerson, man, like I said, like after his second bye week, I'm like, this dude could end up being a league winner because of like people dropping him, being disappointed by him, but he had a lot of really good matchups to end the season here. Well, a couple of unfortunate things happened, right? One, he like Washington State's defense, who they faced twice in these final two seasons, got way better. Their Russian defense got way better. To be fair though, Hankerson did rip off 132 yards and a touchdown against them last time they played, which was only 4 weeks ago. But playing teams twice as hard because they're gonna know that's coming this time. And then also, man, this last week, what a just a dud of a performance here against Tulsa. A terrible rushing defense. He puts up 46 yards on almost 20 carries. Like, ew, disgusting.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if I want to rely on that when I got two guys here in Raleek Brown and Antoine Raymond who are top 24 on the year. Raymond's top 11, like top 12 on the year. Top 25, both top 25 in the back half of the season here. Like, I'd go with either one of those guys. I agree with you. I would lean towards. I think I would lean towards Raymond because I think he can just monopolize those carries just a little bit more. So,
Mhm.
all right. Next question comes to us from Headgear CFB. He says, "Appreciate you taking the time to help us with all of our championships. Appreciate you guys coming in here hanging out. I need help picking one wide receiver, half point PPR. McMillan versus Ohio, Donovan Falpo versus Middle Tennessee State, or Alex Perry versus Sam Houston State." So, Justin, the floor is yours.
Yeah, well,
A couple of
I guess
guys.
we've discussed all three. We've discussed two of the three of these guys, right? Nick
Yeah.
McMillan and Alex Perry. That's right. So, man, Donovan Faple, he's one who I've just been frustrated with because I feel like every time I picked him up this year, he had a dud, and every other game, he does really well.
Yep.
So he's just one that I like refused to believe in. This, even this championship this past weekend, I was thinking about receivers to pick up, and I was just like, no, I can't do it with Faple anymore. And of course, he had a great game. And maybe that'll be the case again this weekend. Great matchup here against Middle Tennessee. Middle Tennessee probably is going to score a bunch of points as well, and could be like a high scoring sort of shootout. I just like with these kind of teams, I just find like because it's so hard to get information on them. And I just feel like I'm in the dark a lot of the time with their players. It does sort of loom large in my mind when I'm like thinking, do I want to pick them up? Do I want to start them? Just because it's like it's a whole experience, as anybody who's played this game knows, to just like I don't know, be trusting these players when you have such limited information and you're just like, I don't even really want to deal with that
Mm-hmm.
half the time. But that being said, we have to sort of be at least objective about the fact that Fightball has been very good, sort of in line with the other two players. They're all sort of similar in terms of I think their performance back half of the year or over the course of the season. I like McMillan against Ohio, as we mentioned earlier. I think Alex Perry versus Sam Houston is another fantastic one. I think, with all three of these, it's not like any of them are playing at like big name programs where, you're going to get a bunch of information on them beforehand. So you're sort of in the same boat with all three. I don't think there's any like injury concerns or anything. So there's nothing like that to distinguish. Um, so, for me, it's splitting hairs. I've had a tough time with Faple just personally this year. So I think I'm going to go with Perry and McMillan, but that's just kind
Pick
of me
one.
based. Yeah, I'll pick one. Oh gosh. Okay. Well, give me Alex Perry. Alex Perry's been really good towards the end of the year. I like his matchup as well.
Yeah, I mean, Alex Perry's going up against, I think, if not the worst, like definitely a bottom three secondary in the entire country. Like, and that's just a defense that Florida International should just be able to name the score against. And if that's the case, Perry's going to find his way into the end zone at some point during that game. I agree with you. Falpo, I like him as a play this week. My projections love him going up against Middle Tennessee State this week. But I agree with you. Like, he's just so up and down sometimes, even in good matchups. And so it's like no need to take the risk when you have two other guys who have been a lot more consistent. And then really between McMillan and Perry, just the matchup is the tiebreaker, in my opinion. Like, yes, can McMillan score in Ohio? Absolutely. Do I see it as less likely than Alex Perry scoring against Sam Houston? I would say that. So
Yeah.
I would agree with you. Perry over the other two. Let's see. Mindless I8H has a quarterback question here. He is asking us between Haynes King going up against Georgia, Connor Wegman going up against Baylor, or Roman Gagliano versus New Mexico State. So King is an interesting one. He's been
I know.
so amazing all season long. A little bit less recently, but also like when he's only scoring 30 points rather than, his 40 plus point performances.
Yeah.
Like first world problems over here when it comes to him, but he is facing Georgia. This is not a, your typical ACC defense that he's going to face. I say that we all thought it was a bad matchup last year, and he only ended up being the quarterback one on the season, or not on the season, but on the week.
Yeah.
Granted, it took going 8 overtimes for that to happen, but at the same time, right? We underestimated him in this matchup last year. We don't want to do that again. I would argue, though, that this Georgia defense is in better shape right now than we were headed into this point last
Oh
season.
yeah,
They're not
yeah.
going to catch Georgia off guard again, I think, this season like they did last season. Am I saying that there's no chance that Georgia Tech upsets Georgia this year? No, absolutely not. Like, I'm not being naive about that, but I am saying is that if that happens, I think it ends up being a lower scoring game. Kind of like the first half of the Georgia Texas game was, right? Where like that game looked like it was heading towards like a 24 like 14 kind of game. I could see that happening here, and that would translate to one of King's lower scoring efforts on the season. Our projections don't see it that way. They got him at 28 points again this week. Totally could happen, but you got Wegman against Baylor, and then who we got? Ogagliano, the brand new shining face of the Middle Tennessee State program here. Justin, what about these other two guys? How do they compare to King?
Oh, yeah. Well, shoot, all three are good options. And just piggybacking on what you said about King, this Georgia defense has shown this year that they can handle mobile quarterbacks a little bit better than in years past. I think you look at what they did with Arch Manning, for example. So I would also keep that in mind with that matchup. Wakeman, um, he's a funny one because like I wouldn't really like I wouldn't immediately categorize him as a dual threat, but he scores a lot of rushing touchdowns and he does actually carry the ball sometimes a lot. Like he is kind of a dual threat, but some games like not really, but he'll just end up with a rushing touchdown somehow anyways. I like him. He's pretty solid. He's had some big games as well, but he's more of just a guy like if you need 25 points, he's kind of like one I would kind of look at. Um, and who the third one is Roman, so the new kid at MTSU.
Yes.
He's also sort of a dual threat quarterback, and he's been great for these past 2 weeks that he's gotten the start with another good matchup on deck. Um, yeah, this one is a funny one because it's like on the surface, like if somebody told you like 2 years ago, like you have a quarterback playing against Georgia's defense versus these other two options, it's like, well, there's not really much of a decision. But given what we saw last year, and I don't know what happened with Georgia Tech this past weekend, like if they were just they're caught thinking about the next week. I mean, I'm sure that they might have been. Unfortunately, their season sort of ended there, and now they're just playing to play spoiler. But I'm sure they're going to have all kinds of tricks and things to unveil on Georgia, and I'm sure Haynes King will still manage to have a solid game. But for me, I am just going to use conventional wisdom here, and at risk of getting hit again by Haynes King, I'm going to go with the two players who are playing against weaker defenses in Weigman and Gagliano. Again, just because defenses are going to be sort of easier to score on. Both these guys have been pretty good this year as well. Not as good as Haynes King, but pretty good in their own right. Whereas Haynes King, defense that he's playing, pretty good. If it goes to 8 overtimes, he has another good game, but that's not something I want to really bet on. And so I'd rather go with the other two.
Yeah, both of these teams, or both of the matchups between Georgia and Georgia Tech, as well as Houston and Baylor, both having over-unders near 60. So I was kind of hoping that might be a tiebreaker there, but that's a bit rough. Gagliano, love him, love what he's done recently. He has a good matchup against New Mexico State. It's championship week. I think you got to roll with guys that have kind of gotten you to this point, rather than like the new guy coming in here that could maybe have his
Fair.
first bad game as a starter. So I would probably stay away from Gagliano here. It's down between King and Wegman. Wegman is so funny because, like you said it yourself, it's like you wouldn't expect him to be like that great for CFF, but like I was shocked when he is one, has not scored less than 25 fantasy points in a game since week 6. Right? He is second among Power 4 quarterbacks in fantasy points per game against conference play. Right?
Yeah, that's surprising.
Actually, no. Excuse me, third. He is third because I forgot. Because Haynes King's number 2. Right?
Okay,
Like
well, it's still pretty good. Yeah.
it's like, but now we got a non-conference game. He's not playing against the ACC competition here. I think you roll Wegman just to be safe. Because I could also see a world where that Georgia defense is pissed off from last year, and they're like, all right, we're going to make King's life a living hell this year, and things could bottom out as well. Versus, I don't really see that happening for Wegman against Baylor. And like you said, Baylor, or like you said, Wegman, he can run. Baylor's rushing defense, I think you pointed out in your
Terrible.
article, like it's
Yeah.
atrocious.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Yeah, well, and Georgia's defense, I think, is better this year. I know CJ Allen may not play this weekend, but that actually might be, in a weird way, a plus for them if they have Chris Cole in there, who's even faster, longer. And they've shown that they can handle mobile quarterbacks better this season, I think, than they have in years past. Again, sort of thinking about Arch Manning with Texas a few weeks ago. Um, so yeah, so I think they'll perform better, but who knows?
who knows? All right, let's try to finish up here. We got a couple more questions. We'll go rapid fire on these. Jeremy Train says, just woke up. Start one, no PPR between Michael Trigg or Brody Foley. So tight end 1 and 2. He's got both of them on his rosters. Justin, who would you roll out, Trigg or Foley?
Yeah, good problem to have. And also, congratulations on just waking up as well. That'd be as someone who's having sleep trouble right now. I'd love to. I don't know when he went to sleep or where he's located, but it sounds like he had a good sleep. Yeah, you're choosing between the two best tight ends. Who are they playing? So Baylor, we know, I guess, is playing Houston, and Foley, Tulsa is playing who?
Uh, USB? Hold on. Let me just,
USF, maybe.
it might be,
No,
yeah, no, UAB.
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 Okay. Yeah, I was like USB. I don't. Is that they playing in another conference? No. So
Yeah, that's what I was
UAB.
wondering as well. I was like, huh?
Yeah, no. Well, UAB is a great opponent as well for fantasy. Uh, I don't know how like someone would differentiate between these two. I'm not really sure exactly. I think because
Quite
Trig is
literally,
tight.
it's like, who's your favorite?
Yeah, well, and Trig has been tight end one, so maybe just go with that and just say, well, on the totality of the season, this guy's slightly better. I don't want to overthink it. There's nothing really that sort of springs to mind to differentiate the two, so let's just roll with the guy who's tight end one.
I will say this in half PPR formats, which granted you did say this is just standard PPR, but like in the
Hmm.
back half of the season, we have only one 15-point game from Trig and three from Foley. I think that might be the tiebreaker for me. Just go with Foley. He's a much bigger piece of that offense right now than Trig. Trig has had his big games, don't get me wrong. He could very well have another one this weekend, but I would just go with Foley against a pretty lowly UAB defense. Next question here. Amphibious Angler. Start two, sit one between Caleb Douglas versus going up against West Virginia. Denzel Boston going up against Oregon, or Cam Coleman going up against Alabama.
Hmm.
I don't like the Boston or Coleman starts because one, Boston's injured. Coleman's going up against Alabama. That's a defense that can like slow him down. But like
Hmm.
Caleb Douglas hasn't been that great for Texas Tech either. Like you're
Yeah.
struggling to pick the right wide receiver in that system every single week. I don't. If you have auto subs in your league, I would go for Boston
Yeah.
and just kind of like just roll that dice there, and then maybe go with Cam Coleman just for talent as well, and just try to rely on just hope that talent overcomes the matchups there. What are your thoughts, Justin?
Yeah, well, speaking personally, I've been burned most this year trying to overthink the matchups, I think, a little bit. And sometimes it's just a question of finding good players, playing them regardless of the matchup. And to your point, so with Denzel Boston, like he got injured against Wisconsin, but then he went back in the game and played more, and then they held him out against UCLA. But Jed Fish said, well, they didn't hold him out actually. I think he ran like three routes against UCLA, didn't record a stat. But Jed Fish did say, similarly with Jonah Coleman, that Boston is expected to play a lot more this week. Now, could be lying, right? Who knows? But I do think Boston was basically held out in a game that they knew they could win
Mm-hmm.
um, for this Oregon game because this is much bigger for them. If they win, this is a huge season-defining win. And I think Boston's going to be, I don't know if he's 100%, but I do think like the fact that he finished that Wisconsin game and was still making receptions and I know he was hobbled, but like he played, he finished.
Yeah.
And now we're a few weeks removed from that. I think he's going to play and I think he's going to be targeted. So Boston's my number one guy in this question. Cam Coleman. Um, it's a rivalry game, and weird things happen in Jordan Hare, as anybody who's followed that rivalry knows. And it just feels like a game where Auburn could like do something crazy, and I feel like Cam Coleman will be at the center of that. So he would definitely be sort of the next option there, but Boston would be the one I would go with for sure. And Douglas, I don't know. I don't really, because just again, as Jared said, like he's not, that's just an offense where it's not really clear. Like, okay, what receiver do you want? And he's just not really one that I would think of in terms of like, well, championship weekend, do I want to like try wide receiver 3 or 2 at this like Texas Tech team? These other two guys, we know they're wide receiver 1. Let's just roll with them and let's see what happens.
I would definitely agree. All right, rapid fire here. Joseph Webb's question. He has 4 running backs here. We need to start 2. Emmett Johnson versus Iowa, King Miller versus UCLA, Dominic Richardson versus Tulane, or Wayshawn Parker versus, I don't know who Utah's facing this week, but it ain't Utah. I can tell you that much.
Sean Parker. Let me see.
Yeah, I got it. He is facing Kansas this week.
Okay. Well, that's not a bad matchup. Um, Man, that Utah team is a hard one to figure because now they've got this Bert Fickle character in the mix who's scoring
Mm-hmm.
all the rushing touchdowns, and you got Dampier who's scoring rushing touchdowns. It's a very run heavy team. If they score 7 rushing touchdowns, then like surely Wayshawn Parker can get one, but like if they don't, then it's slim pickings. Um, and then, we've got Emmett Johnson there, who I've already mentioned is, to me, is just a guy you start and you don't really overthink it. I know Iowa defense, et cetera, et cetera. But EJ, even when he doesn't score a touchdown, right, like he still has a really good game. And I can't remember if this is PPR or not, but certainly if it's PPR, he's the guy who you just plug in and don't think it, don't overthink it. So Emmett Johnson's is one for sure. Um, Dominic Richardson, we just talked about oh yeah, they're playing UAB. That's a great matchup, I think, for Tulsa, for Tulsa's run game.
Yeah.
And King Miller, who are they playing? They're playing UCLA.
UCLA.
Oh God. I
Terrible
don't know.
rushing defense.
They're very difficult to choose between all of these players. EJ, just because he's been so good all year, he's one that I'm plugging in. The other three, I think Dominic Richardson, just because the other two, I feel like there's more competition for scores, whereas D Rich, I feel like he's more of the offense compared to the other two. But yeah, slim margin there.
I don't trust Dominic Richardson. I have been burned too many times by that man this year. So I would sit him. I would start Emmett Johnson again. Start your stud here. No reason not to sit. Iowa's defense is good. They're not that good. And even a low scoring matchup, Emmett Johnson's a pretty good candidate to score at some point. I would go King Miller again. That UCLA defense. The only thing that might worry me is the fact that there's been talk for forever now about Wayman Jordan could be back any week or whatever. But like, if that pops up, Wayshawn Parker versus Kansas should be fine. But yeah, I would go Johnson. I would go King Miller there. Oh God, you guys keep dropping questions. We're never gonna get out of here. This will be the last question. Brett B. Not Brett Pondy, unfortunately. He is in the chat, but he's not asking questions. But Brett B says, "Hey guys, thanks for being the reason I have a shot at the title this year." Hey Brett, thanks for tuning in, man. Need wide receiver 2 help this week. Parker Kingston, Bachmeier stack, quote unquote, versus UCF. Carlos Hernandez versus Duke. Isaiah Satania versus LSU. Is it bad that I was it?
So we're choosing the 3 receivers, right? Yeah, because he has
pick one receiver between these 3.
Okay.
Is it bad that I just want to say Carlos Hernandez because I feel so good about being right on that now at the end of the season?
Yeah,
It's a good matchup.
never wrong, only early, right? As they say, Jared.
That's the quote.
Yeah, well, Satania has been pretty good all season long, right? And he's definitely one that I know LSU's defense is pretty good, and they have a good secondary, but that program is also just kind of in flux. So it's hard to know like what are you going to get from them week to week. I understand the logic too of Kingston because Chase Roberts was injured. We don't know if he's coming back this week, and that free up a lot of targets. But that just feels like, you want to remove as much speculation as possible when you're, going to championship weekend. The more things where you have to sort of argue it as, well, if this happens, then that happens, So for me, it's more like, well, Sategna is a stud. There's not really anything that we're saying, if this happens, then it can be really good. It's just more like, well, if he just does what he sort of normally does, it should be a good week. And then who was the second player? Who was the other player? It was Kingston or
Kingston and
Carlos.
Hernandez.
Yeah, so the player I guess that you had selected. I've got no problem with starting Hernandez either. I've picked him in one of these questions earlier in the show. He's red hot right now against a good defense. Not a
Yeah.
good defense, a good matchup. And so Hernandez or Sategna are the two for me that I'm really thinking about. Hernandez feels maybe like a higher upside guy than Sategna, so it kind of depends, like, what do you really want? Do you want a safer floor? Sategna to me feels like he's been doing this all season long. So maybe he's safer versus Hernandez. But again, it's I want to be careful not to assume that we know more than we actually know when it comes to CFF, because there's so much unknown. But so we got the over under here for the LSU game. I know it's low, but like if someone
That's
scores,
low. That's
if someone
real
scores
low.
but if someone scores for Oklahoma, I just feel like, okay, well, Sategna is probably one of those players. Yeah, but the Wake Forest Duke one is significantly higher, 10 points higher, 11 points higher. Yeah, I'm gonna choose Sategna just as a safer option, but if you want a higher upside play, Hernandez for sure makes a lot of sense too.
Yeah, I'll ride with my boy Hernandez here. I'm hoping he stays at Wake Forest for another year as well. I'm going to be drafting way too much next year, given what he's done here at the end. Our projections again, I took off the projections immediately because like we have them all within like a half a point of each other, and it's just like throw your hands up.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we're out of questions in the chat. Those of you who left questions on Twitter, I'll see if I can find some time here between now and when games really get started. Like kind of tomorrow. We have one game tomorrow, but then like it's Friday and Saturday. Obviously, Thanksgiving weekend, everything really kicks off. I'll try to answer those when I get some time. Justin, if you want to go on there and give your thoughts as well, feel free. But yeah, we have pretty much come to the end of our show, and this is the last regular season CTN for the year. So appreciate all of you guys tuning in. Appreciate you, Justin, for hopping on for these last couple of shows. It's been absolutely fun. I don't really got much else to say except all of you out there, like, again, give yourself a pat on the back and good luck in your championship games this weekend. Like, just know there's not much you can change from here on out. You just got to ride with what you got. So, Justin, you got any final thoughts before we get out of here? Oh yeah, it's a pretty good turnout, I would say. I was pleasantly surprised. So, fingers crossed. No injury BS or anything. Just straight up wins or losses. So, all right. Appreciate all of you guys, and y'all have a wonderful Thanksgiving weekend with your families. I'll see you guys whenever we hop back on here. See ya.